A major provision of the Affordable Care Act is put on hold. I'm Dwayne Brown. What's being delayed and why? Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition. And we'll show you how military downsizing is opening the door for some former medics at the VA hospital in La Jolla.
I'm Peggy Pico. Also ahead, a promise to appeal by the parents who sued over yoga classes at Encinitas schools. An analysis of separation of church, state, and physical education. Then we'll hear from the man in these surveillance photos, acquitted yesterday of vandalism charges for writing anti-bank slogans with sidewalk chalk. Why he did it and how prosecution of vandals may change.
Also tonight, a look at theater on the Fringe. More than 100 San Diego artists joining in a festival to celebrate originality and experimenting in the arts. KPBS Evening Edition starts now. Hello, good evening. Thanks for joining us. Employers will get a one-year reprieve on a major provision of the Affordable Care Act, the requirement to offer health care coverage to their workers. Today, the Treasury Department announced a one-year delay. Business groups wanted more time and an easier process to show they're following the rules. The delay does not affect the individual mandate requiring most Americans get coverage, and it won't affect insurance exchanges where folks can buy health coverage. Those are scheduled to launch in October. A brush fire is burning at this hour in the East County tonight. It's near El Monte Park in Lakeside. It started just before 1:30 this afternoon. No structures are threatened, but fire officials say it could burn as much as 200 acres. Federal investigators are in Arizona trying to figure out how an elite firefighting crew got overtaken by flames Sunday night. 19 men died. Fire officials say the team's lone survivor was on a hill relaying information to the others and warned them the fire was changing direction. It has now spread to 8,400 acres in Arizona. Now, the wildfire there is a tragic reminder of the danger of firefighting. KPBS reporter Susan Murphy tells us San Diego firefighters have been training for similar situations and bracing for a tough summer.
San Diego County's record dry vegetation is a huge concern this year among the firefighting community. That's because low fire fuel moisture levels can create greater fire intensity and higher and faster moving flames. The combined elements can be extremely dangerous for fire crews. Stephen Fillmore is Forest Fuels Officer with the Cleveland National Forest. He trains firefighters on fire behaviors and fuel moistures to help keep them safe.
Every firefighter has a stake in what's going on a fire, and the more that they know about the fuel moistures and all the other sort of environmental parameters that are happening on a fire, conceivably the safer they will be.
Fillmore says fires with drier fuel beds exhibit larger and more dramatic flame heights.
The energy that the fire is putting into sustaining itself gets lost when it's trying to evaporate off that moisture. When it's not having to do that, then the fire can put more energy into the flame lengths and how fast it moves.
Fillmore says situational awareness can be life-saving for firefighters, but he says strong winds add a whole new level of danger. Shifting winds reportedly caused 19 elite firefighters in Arizona to die on Sunday. California's wildfire season is off to a ferocious start. Firefighters have battled nearly 2,000 fires so far this year, and the peak of the season is still months away. Susan Murphy, KPBS News.
Independence Day is just 2 days away, so are all the barbecues, beers, and fireworks. But celebrating doesn't come without a warning from the police chief.
If you're going to drink and drive, you're going to be in trouble, and you're going to spend your weekend not at the beach, but with us, all the people that you see here.
15 different agencies are taking part in Operation Safeguard, a countywide 5-day campaign to reduce alcohol-related death and injuries through the long holiday weekend. That includes DUI checkpoints and roving patrols across the county. Students can still take yoga classes in a North County school district after a judge ruled this week the classes are not religious. Peggy Pico talks with the ACLU about the ruling.
Although Superior Court Judge John Meyer said yoga has religious roots, he ruled the district's altered yoga classes have been stripped of religious reference. For example, Students do the crisscross applesauce instead of the lotus pose. But the parents, aided by a Christian legal group who brought the suit, vowed to appeal the decision. Here to talk more about the separation of church and state and the ruling is ACLU attorney David Loy. David, welcome back.
Thank you.
Now, Stephen and Jennifer Sudlock, they were the parents who sued the district because they felt that this yoga classes being taught were inherently religious because they had ties to Hinduism. What is the legal definition of religion?
It's easier to say what is not religion than what is religion, but when the school district teaches a program or a class that is completely devoid of any spiritual content, then it's clearly not religious. So, for example, a school district can teach you should not lie, cheat, or steal, and that is clearly not religious, even though those principles may originally or may coincide with the Ten Commandments, which are religious.
Okay, and the First Amendment is clear, as you're bringing up, about the separation between church and state. Specifically, California law, what does it say as far as creationism, any type of spiritual or religious teaching whatsoever in the schools?
Yeah. California is subject to the First Amendment and also under state law has even stricter rules about separation of church and state and not teaching any religious doctrine in public schools. But as far as I know, that as you said, based on what I've read only in the press, the judge in this case found that the school district completely stripped out any religious content or references from the yoga class, and so it's purely, according to the judge, purely a physical education and physical health program.
Right, and Judge Meyer said besides physical exercise, gym classes have always included lessons about respect and perseverance. I want to listen to, here's how he explained it in court.
This physical education, health and wellness class is no different, except that the physical aspect, instead of kickball or something else, is EUSD yoga.
Saying what you said, that it's been stripped, it's sure it has some, perseverance and respect, but basically the curriculum was changed enough. Do you agree? Do you think the curriculum was changed enough?
Based on what I've read in the press, which is all I know, and what the judge found, it does appear that the judge did a careful review of the facts, and I respect his findings. Without sitting through the whole trial, I don't know what was presented, but from what I've read, it appears they did reach the right result based on a careful review of the facts and evidence.
Right, and to be clear, you weren't in the court and you weren't representing either side. Now, this 30-minute yoga session is done twice a week to students. It's supported by a grant from what was the KP Joyce Foundation, now the Sonimai Foundation, which promotes Ashtanga yoga, a practice common to Hindu practice, religious practice. Do you think this link to this foundation, which supports Ashtanga yoga, which is linked to Hinduism, do you think that link will provide a valid argument for the appeal?
Not necessarily. What's most important is the message that is conveyed to the students in this school. And as long as the public school is not in any way endorsing religion or facilitating religious teaching and is simply teaching a purely secular program in class, no matter what the funding source, that's what's most important, as long as they're not endorsing or promoting religion. It is important in cases like this to make sure that groups, whether of any belief, if they're making donations to public schools, that they're not that it's not being used as an opportunity for stealth evangelism.
So yeah, sort of a back door in to try to preach what they want to preach. Now, you've said that First Amendment rights are non-discriminatory as far as when it comes to this isn't about Christianity versus Hinduism. What is it about?
It's about the Constitution. The Constitution plays no favorites. The ACLU plays no favorites. We've represented Christians in defending their free exercise and free speech rights. We've represented atheists. We've represented people of all faiths or of no faith. It's about defending the law and defending the Constitution.
All right. ACLU attorney David Loy, thanks so much. I want to let folks know there's a whole lot more about this on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
The downsizing of the U.S. military means more veterans are looking for work. But if your job was in the medical field, the prospects of working at a hospital without proper accreditation are slim. Now, the VA hospital in La Jolla is one of 14 nationwide putting former medics back to work. Kevin Matsky served 6 years in Afghanistan as a Navy corpsman in what he describes as one of the busiest trauma centers in the world.
To go from that to here is a nice slowing of pace, but it's definitely fast-paced enough here to keep me going.
Matsky and fellow Navy corpsman Michael Santana have more than 25 years medical experience combined, but they lack the medical schooling necessary to work in a traditional hospital setting.
Today is his dialysis day.
That's where the VA's Intermediate Care Technician program comes in. Nurse Nancy Howerton says it helps both doctors and patients by speeding up the time it takes to get through a visit, even in the ER.
You have a position, you actually get paired up with a mentor so that opportunities to advance your education while using the skills that you learned in the military, that you can do both.
You don't have COPD, do you?
Michael Santana is one of 3 vets chosen for the pilot program and says it allows him to work in a field he loves.
Something that was ingrained in me from my parents. My father was a firefighter. My mother was a nurse. So helping people just seemed to be the thing to do.
Caring for vets is one thing, but this program allows vets to care for one another, and that's a very special thing. Santana and Matsky will move into permanent positions once they finish the program. Both are currently going to school to become physician assistants, and the Intermediate Care Technician program is expected to continue indefinitely. Egyptian President Mohamed Morsi says he will not step down from office. Millions of protesters have been demanding his ouster. 7 people were killed in demonstrations today. The Egyptian military has given Morsi until tomorrow to work out his differences with the opposition. PBS NewsHour will have more on the unrest in Egypt tonight at 7. Edward Snowden's search for asylum could take him to Venezuela. It's one of the countries he's applied to, and its president is in Moscow right now. Nicolas Maduro won't say whether he'll grant Snowden's request, but he did praise the former NSA contractor for leaking information on U.S. intelligence gathering, calling it an effort to prevent wars. The U.S. calls it espionage and wants Snowden extradited. During a recent 5-year period, 3 times more meth was seized at San Diego ports of entry than all other U.S.-Mexico border crossings combined. Meth seizures this year are on track to far surpass last year, and its use is on the rise again in San Diego County. As Fronteras reporter Joe Replogle tells us, it's happening despite laws in both countries to crack down on it.
Where are you going? National City.
Customs and Border Protection agents here at the San Ysidro Port of Entry face a tough balancing act, facilitating international trade and travel on the one hand, and on the other, trying to stop drugs and other illegal cargo from getting into the U.S. In recent years, they've seen a dramatic increase in one particular drug. Meth seizures at San Diego's Port of Entry have risen by more than 300% since 2008. San Diego has a long and troubled history with methamphetamine. During World War II, meth spread among many American service members stationed in the Pacific Theater. When they came back to the U.S., primarily through San Diego, they brought their addictions with them, and they helped spawn a domestic meth industry.
Gangs, biker gangs, usually controlled the meth production and distribution. And Mexico used to provide the precursors.
In the 1990s, San Diego became known as the meth capital of the country. Rampant abuse accompanied several high-profile crimes. There was the man who hijacked a tank and drove it down the highway, and the couple who scalded their 4-year-old niece to death in a bathtub. In both cases, the perpetrators were high on meth. The damage caused by the highly addictive drug spawned a crackdown on domestic meth production.
It was an extraordinary unqualified success.
But with continued demand and restricted supply, organized crime saw a big opportunity.
Especially the Sinaloa cartel has looked at this and said, why are we the middleman? Why aren't we producing this ourselves?
Now Garcia says more than 80% of the meth seized in the U.S. is made in Mexico, and that's despite Mexico's own attempts to curb its production. Most of that meth comes through San Diego, making this the current meth trafficking capital of the country. In part, that's because San Diego is home to the busiest land crossing between the U.S. and Mexico. More legal traffic tends to come with more illegal traffic. but history and geography also play a role.
One of the major criminal organizations working with meth has historically been based in the Pacific Coast area of Mexico, in the Colima region.
The powerful Sinaloa cartel now controls most of the meth trade. It's taken over the old smuggling routes, and over the last few years, it's come to dominate drug trafficking in Baja California.
So it makes a lot of sense that this would be moving through San Diego.
Most of the meth comes across the border hidden in passenger cars. And while heightened security has made smuggling riskier, the profits are extraordinary.
We've had expert testimony in our cases where the range is at a conservative level between $14,000 and $19,000 a pound when it comes into San Diego. So that's, that price has increased, I think, dramatically too over a period of time. And the price pretty much doubles from what that pound is in Mexico to what the pound is in the United States, just by crossing the port of entry, because that's the toughest part of the job.
It's very difficult to know just how much Mexican meth is making it through San Diego ports of entry, but public health workers say meth use in the county is again on the rise. Still, border authorities think part of the reason drug seizures have increased is because they're doing a better job of detecting drugs. The long lines at San Isidro give drug-sniffing dogs time to weave in and out of the cars and alert officers to hidden stashes. Powerful X-ray machines can spot packages hidden in gas tanks and secret panels.
CBP officers have found drugs in 3 different cars this morning in just 4 hours that we've been here. They found 22 bundles of marijuana in this gas tank here, and the next step is to weigh it.
Still, authorities are realistic about their chances of finally beating the traffickers.
They're not going to go away. They're going to go do something else. But we're trying to get them to go away from meth because meth just ravages any user.
Jill Replogle, KPBS News.
A federal report out tonight says more middle-aged women are dying of drug overdoses than ever before, and most are overdosing on prescription painkillers. Doctors at the Centers for Disease Control say women get higher doses, often prescribed, and tend to stay on painkillers longer than men, but men still account for most overdose deaths. A flashing neon sign has landed a Ventura County man in jail. The sign has an anti-Mitt Romney message. Stephen Showers put it up before last year's presidential election and never took it down. Last month, he was convicted for code violations. The judge says he could have avoided jail if he took the sign down, but Showers refused. He says the sign falls under his First Amendment rights. Freedom of speech was also at the center of a San Diego case. A North Park man charged with vandalism for protesting big banks with sidewalk chalk. He was found not guilty on Monday, but not before the case got national media attention and a statement from Mayor Bob Filner calling it stupid. Peggy Pico looks at the many layers to what's being called Chalk Gate.
Jeff Olson admitted to using washable sidewalk chalk to write anti-big bank slogans on 13 different occasions outside of 3 local Bank of America branches, including this one in North Park, where a surveillance camera caught him in the act, writing, "No thanks, big banks," and "Shame on Bank of America." But on Monday, a San Diego Superior Court jury found Olson not guilty of all 13 charges of vandalism. We'll hear from Olson in just a moment, but first, Thomas Jefferson School of Law professor Mary Beth Harold is here to shed some light on First Amendment and vandalism laws. And Mary Beth, thanks for joining us.
I appreciate being here.
Now, Mayor Bob Filner, called this case stupid. That's his words, and a waste of taxpayer money. But the city attorney says they get about 20,000 vandalism cases each year. Do most of these 20,000 cases go to court?
I would suspect only a few go to court and go to a jury trial. So I think that's quite unusual. My understanding from those cases is a lot might be plea bargained away. And in this case, the defendant really didn't want to accept the plea bargain offered.
Right, which I believe was he refused to complete some volunteer cleanup work, so therefore it was going to move forward.
He felt that it was overreaching and a violation of his First Amendment rights to prosecute him. So he took a stand on this issue and went to trial.
Well, Jeff Olson, and that's who we're talking about, he talked with us earlier today on Midday Edition. Here's what he said about why he did this.
I was trying to send a message to the people who use the sidewalks that there was a business that was conducting fraudulent practices operating openly in North Park. And so I was trying to warn people that they were at risk of being defrauded.
So now malice is an important issue. It's a key factor in deciding vandalism cases. And Jeff, as he was saying, as we just heard, that he didn't have malice on this. He was trying to exercise his right of free speech. What's the difference as far as the law when it comes to malice and First Amendment free speech?
Well, the key difference for First Amendment purposes is whether a statute and the enforcement is aimed at the content of the expression. So the First Amendment is very protective of what we say. So, for example, there's a very famous First Amendment case where Texas prosecuted someone for burning the flag because they didn't like what the person was saying about U.S. government policies by burning the flag. But if they had, in fact, charged him with simply burning material without a permit, that might have been acceptable under the First Amendment, as long as there was no evidence in either the statute or in the prosecution that they were going after the content. And I think Jeff Olson in this case believes that the city attorney's office was actually going after the content of his message, and that would cause a First Amendment issue.
No, the question about this, so Bank of America originally pressured, presented these charges, but it was a city sidewalk. So did the city actually have to go after him as opposed to, was it Bank of America versus the city?
Yes, the Bank of America made a complaint to the city, and the city made a choice using their prosecutorial discretion which of these many cases they would go after. And that was part of the complaint of Jeff Olson, is that why are they, and the mayor in fact, why are they using their resources to prosecute the sidewalk chalk case? So the question really regarding the First Amendment is, would he have been prosecuted if he had written on the sidewalk, "I love banks," smiley face?
Right.
If he wouldn't have been prosecuted, then we know that the city is acting in a way that is violation of the First Amendment.
Should activists and free speech advocates be heralding this decision, or should they be worried that their free speech might be challenged in court more like this?
I think that this decision ducked all of the First Amendment issues, and it was decided purely on the statute. And usually in a First Amendment case, this is somewhat unusual. Mostly people go to trial on unpopular speech. So it's the Nazis and the flag burners that seek often the protections of the First Amendment against prosecution for unpopular speech. Here it was very popular speech, and the jury found through the hook of the maliciousness that it was not a violation of the statute.
Why do you think, in a nutshell, that this struck a chord with so many people across the nation?
I think really it is the story of big government and big banks against the little person using sidewalk chalk. And I think that that struck the chord of us all worrying about powerful governments prosecuting rather silly acts or important acts of free speech. It may seem unimportant now, but it adds up to a very big violation if the government steps on our rights.
All right, there's a whole lot more about this on our website, kpbs.org. Law Professor Mary Beth Harold, thanks so much for talking with us today.
You're welcome.
This week marks the launch of the first San Diego Fringe. It's inspired by the Edinburgh Festival Fringe, a protest in 1947 by small acting companies against the city's mainstream theater festival. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando explains what audiences can expect in San Diego.
The Edinburgh Fringe Festival is like sensory overload as hundreds of artists scramble to stage thousands of performances over multiple weeks. This week, San Diego taps into the spirit of the Fringe, but on a smaller scale. The inaugural festival will serve up everything from modern dance to puppetry, from drag queens to femme fatales.
I'm an institution of corruption and lies and deceit.
But perhaps the show that embodies the spirit of Fringe best is Ubu Roy.
Guilty!
Michael Nieto plays the title character.
This is the Forest of Arden. Actually, I'm in a dumpster in Hillcrest. But that's the thing about the Fringe. You take advantage of whatever space you're going to be in. It's like the science of theater. It's where creation comes from. So sometimes we're very constrained by what we think people will like. But Fringe is an opportunity to do anything we want.
The stirrings of a Fringe festival began 8 years ago with Todd Blakesley, but the infrastructure wasn't there. Now it is.
First of all, we were able to find venues within walking distance of each other. That was one of the big challenges there, because the most successful Fringes are ones that where all the theatrical venues or performance venues are within walking distance.
Nearly 50 groups will be performing one-hour plays for $10 or less through July 7th at multiple downtown venues. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
There's a new excessive heat warning in effect for our mountain and desert areas. You might want to head to the coast, where temperatures will be in the 70s for the next few days, mid-80s for the inland valleys, with a mix of sun and clouds. 80s for the mountains as well, where the heat warning is up until Thursday night. Desert temperatures will top 100 degrees again, with a slight cool down by Friday. You can find tonight's stories and download the KPBS app all on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. Have a great night.